All right. Morning, everyone. It is that time of the day again, sunrise safari time and live time in Africa. So big welcome here to Djuma Game Reserve, Sabi Sands. My name is Peter Pretorius, Brian behind the camera. There's the usual happy days. And Will Fox back in control. HT and VM are also in the way out, and of course the rest of the team, all the brilliant minds and hands that are part of this amazing effort. So thank you everyone for being part of it. And it's a stunning morning. It was quite hot yesterday, but this morning's nice and fresh, a little bit overcast. Probably in my personal opinion, some of the best safari weather there is. I mean, people always want sunshine, but this kind of cool overcast weather in the morning is beautiful. So we're going to have a lovely time. We're going to start looking around just a little bit here, but we do want to head east, which if there was less cloud, you'd see the sun coming up or busy getting higher in the sky. And we're going to go look around for some lions that we heard roaring last night. Early morning we could hear them as well. Sounds like 2 males, so probably dominant males. And yeah, that's the plan. Let's go look around. Beautiful sky. Like an impressionist morning. Mornings, probably even more so than the evenings, you're really alert to spotting anything because everything's new. I mean, we're driving past the waterhole. It's always stunning to be near any body of water. Lots of things that could be around, apart from obviously hippos in this case, or one hippo. Yesterday there were quite a few. It's just something about the morning. It's all new, you know. It's been a whole night, a whole lot of things that could have happened during that time, and then it's like a new page when you go out there. Also, you know that things are very active still. In the morning you sort of start with activity that sort of wanes down to less activity as it gets later and hotter. In the afternoons it's almost the other way around. Things are a little bit slower, and then as you get towards sunset, then it gets busier. This morning, nice bit of bird activity, blacksmith plovers flying around, heron in the distance, starlings, doves. All the usual beautiful bustle of morning in the bush. Scott's arriving. We've been talking about the Lowveld again and how awesome this area is. He's just been up in East Africa, and all the different parts of Africa has their own special feel and romance to it. But the Lowveld just has such a sort of in-your-face kind of feel. It's such a beautiful, very real place. And we're going to continue on, and I think HT is going to say good morning to you for a bit. Enjoy the drive that side, and we'll see you again in a little bit.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to Safari Live here in Djuma and Arathusa Game Reserves in Sabi Sound, South Africa. My name's Hayden Turner. On camera this morning I've got Jason. Morning. And we're really looking forward to taking you out to find as much as we possibly can. Very interesting afternoon yesterday. Pete's probably filled you in and updated you a little bit. Didn't find that leopard, but he's still going to be looking around, as am I this morning. We caught up with those lions. We stayed with them for quite a long time, but I think it's important that we do that because anything could have happened. They did start to get up and move about 5 to 10 minutes before we closed, but they walked off into the night and probably went off on a bit of a hunt. Now, I just talked to some of the guides. I talked to Cedric over on Arathusa, and he's going to keep me updated. He's back on their trail, so we'll see what happens there. We're going to head down and have a look at our treehouse dam to see if our hippo's there. We didn't get a chance to move about 5 to 10 minutes before we closed, but they walked off into the night and probably went off on a bit of a hunt. Now, I just talked to some of the guides. I talked to Cedric over on Arathusa, and he's going to keep me updated. He's back on their trail, so we'll see what happens there. We're going to head down and have a look at our treehouse dam to see if our hippo's there. We didn't get a chance incredible. They were full, it was everywhere, and that brought loads of other different things as well. As we were driving along, there was interestingly enough, frogs all over the road that we were dodging everywhere we were driving, and in turn that would have brought out lots of reptiles, which we didn't see a load of, but would have brought out snakes to hunt those toads. So it's a knock-on effect. The termites are a food for something else, and that's a nice little food chain going on there. But it was a pretty amazing thing, and a great day. We're going to head on. We'll do Treehouse Dam, Twin Dams, then over to Arathusa and see what we can find. So we'll get driving. We've got Will, Alex, Peter, not Peter Pretorius, but Peter Braat, one of the technical geniuses, as well as Alex back, and 2 times Alex in there in the control room, leading us and directing us this morning in that. So we're just heading down to a little road that's going to take us up to that. And Scott's in the control room as well. He'll be in this vehicle tomorrow morning taking you on a drive, and as I've said before, fantastic guy and really knowledgeable, and he's really looking forward to getting out and learning the roads on the reserve, as I was the first day. It's a bit of a sort of drop you in it and just do your best, really, and all you really need to know is the perimeter, the boundary roads of Djuma, and then as long as you stick on the inside there, all is fine. And I think that's a great bit of the adventure, sort of going out and exploring these roads, and no matter how long you've been driving around Africa or doing whatever you've been doing, exploring a new area is always fantastic. Really interesting, different trees, different plants, different wildlife, and just different terrain. It's a great experience. Beautiful morning, 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Very, very nice Fahrenheit. Very, very nice temperature for predators to be still active. We see it's going to heat up. The cloud is burning off at the moment, but it'll stay this temperature for a little while. I saw Pete caught up with Brian the wildebeest last night as well, which is good. Can't find VM though. I'm sure he's still around though. It's a bit tricky when they all look identical, but Brian's mum has got a bit of a wonky horn, so Pete picked that up last night, which was great. That was Brian's. So we did a little bit on basic tracking yesterday. That was Brian's. So we did a little bit on basic tracking yesterday. And eat rain, those perfect conditions to look at tracks. And each time that rain comes the night before, we've got beautiful soft wet roads and obliterated tracks from the night before. We'll start to pick up on a couple more tracks, and we'll maybe look at, you know, the sort of really obvious ones to start with: buffalo, elephant. We had a look at giraffe and impala and zebra, and of course, as soon as we find a hippo track, I'll show you as well. And then some of the predators as well. The hyena we'll probably come across, leopard of course, lion on Arathusa. If we get fresh tracks there today, I'll definitely stop and show you. So the whole point of that conversation yesterday was just to open up the whole world for you when it comes to viewing wildlife and having these encounters. I think you need to, one needs to develop an understanding of the environment and on a little bit of a deeper level, and that is that once you start to look at tracks and signs, your world becomes even more interesting than just the visible, obvious sort of animals that are in front of you when you come across them. And when you combine both of those things, you can really start to do some nice little investigative work. And as I said yesterday, absolutely fantastic for children, for your family, and getting out. It's a real sort of interactive affair that you can have with your kids and your family, and learn loads more about the bush. So we have no hippo. Our hippo is not here. We just got a tweet from Mary Jo and she's just asked a question. She hasn't seen many snakes here. Well, and your other question, is there too few snakes here to see them? The answer to that is definitely not. We see snakes quite often. We just haven't seen them a lot on camera, and the reason for that is snakes will, just in your vision by the way, they're terrapins or turtles actually sticking their little heads up, I think. Is that Jace? I'm just watching from afar here. I need to look at the binoculars. Little ones are sticking their heads up, I think. I came down the other day and there was a terrapin sitting on the back of that hippo, but scooted into the water as soon as we got here. So, Mary Jo, the snakes, there's many different species of snakes here. The other night we were walking back from our supper to our campfire, and we saw an absolutely magnificent specimen of a Mozambican spitting cobra, which is always a little bit of a wake-up call to make sure your torch is on, Will. And to make sure you're all walking together safely in the night. Now, Will nearly stepped on it, Mary Jo, and I saved his life by pulling him aside, but he did a very, very quick sidestep as well. And Will did a very, very good sidestep. He's just talking to me on control there. The before we see them and make a quick exit. The snakes that will come at us, which will stay very, very still on a road and try and blend into the surroundings. So, to answer your question, Mary Jo, we do have a lot of snakes here. They probably hear us more before we see them into the surroundings. So, to answer your question, Mary Jo, we do have a lot of snakes here. They probably hear us more before we see them, but if we do see any, we'll definitely stop. I think the other day Pete saw a black mamba on the road. Jason, who's on camera this morning with me, saw a dead puff out of the other day. We'll probably see a lot more. So no hippo, which is interesting again. We'll come back this afternoon and have a look. And old bull, but you never know with animals. The resilience of animals in the world. We're trying to follow what's going on with him. He's an old bull, but you never know with animals. The resilience of animals in the wild is incredible. And hippos, you know, get up to sort of 40-ish years, but are probably more like it in the wild. And it depends on so many things. It depends on the concentration of other hippos. I think it was the Wild Bunch girls that get together, and a big hi to you if you're watching, and everyone else, you know, all our regular safari participants that join us on the vehicle. It's been a big 3 weeks, particularly for the technical guys, or for all of us, you know. We might just lose you now. Gives me a little dip that we drop down into. Sometimes we lose signal, but you know, we've had the technical team working tirelessly on that, and Pete and I and everyone else driving the vehicles around to try and get things better and better and better. Just over there, a couple landing, just there. There's one also, Jace, just close by here. We just had an email from DJ Kinsis. Hello DJ, and welcome aboard. As always, it's great to have you. The question is, does it get cold enough for the animals to hibernate? Well, the answer to that is really no, DJ. It doesn't really get cold enough. We don't have the extremes of temperature like we do the polar regions where, or even where it gets cold enough for animals to go into a torpor, which is like a in-between, it's a sort of a semi-state of hibernation where the animals are still a little bit more conscious still, I suppose, not full hibernation. But what will happen is a lot of the snakes and reptiles will become a lot less active and slow their selves down in the colder times. So you won't see as many reptiles as you will in the summer. So they don't get into a cold state where any of the mammals, like the big mammals that we see, but it's get cold in the winter. Strangely enough, you'll get really low temperatures in the winter, but it only is there in the night and the morning and the night time. But in the days, it's beautiful, sunny, crisp days. So to answer your question, not really, but you will get a little less activity with the reptiles. Jace, just if you can slowly pan around, just to the right of me, there's a stunning bird that we haven't touched on yet, and I want you just to get this bird just here, right here, this glossy starling. And whilst you're on that, I'm just going to get the bird up. It's such a stunning bird, a common resident again, that beautiful glossy look about it. So just keep on him while I get the picture of him up. It's just moved across there. I'll just move my head out of the way for you. It's just moved across there. I'll just move my head out of the way for you. He's just moved across next to the buzz. Really beautiful bird. This app, he's just having a little bath there, just gently okay, so this one we're going to start on today, this Cape Glossy Starling, and then we're going to also have a look at another starling and compare, and this is the call. Look at that, guys. There's a stunning moth. Just landed on my hand there. Jace, I'm just trying to get it still for you. He's taken off. So that's a glossy starling, and yeah, a very common resident. So that's a glossy starling, and yeah, a very common resident. We'll add another one to our list later. It'll sound like a blacksmith hitting his anvil. And the common residents. We'll add another one to our list later. It'll sound like a blacksmith hitting his anvil. And the common residents that we're doing at the moment just allow us to see them more often, get more familiar with them, as I said yesterday. Tours. And birds are great because you do see birds a lot when you're not seeing a lot of mammals. Bird up, and great to just get IDs on them. When I travel throughout Africa and work in different countries, little bit than Africa, next minute you're in East Africa or North Africa, and the birds change considerably. You'll get you'll get some migrants that'll go from place to place that you'll see, but you really have to get back into it, because if you don't use it, you lose the type of thing. The familiarity with the different species, and it's easy to sort of make a mistake on the starlings. There's so many different ones, or any for that matter. But most importantly, you don't have to pretend to be some sort of specialist on birds. Treat it as a bit of an activity to do in between looking at the mammals. Just heading up now to Arathusa, and we're just going to go onto the airstrip. I've got the radio on listening. Cedric's going to give me an update if he finds those lines again. Four beautiful boys yesterday. We sat with them for quite a long time, but I'm sure everyone was okay with that. It's really important when you do find these beautiful big carnivores that, okay, they were lying flat most of the time, but they were starting to stir, and we did see them stand up, and just to be in their presence, because they were very, very close to us. It wasn't like a sighting that was way off. We were right amongst it. So it was quite peaceful just sitting there and watching them. And then they had a big social sort of 5 minutes together, and then they all walked off into the night. Really nice stuff. But I want to go down onto the airstrip, where what I do is try and get down there once a day if we can. It's an area where there are potentially cheetah sightings and things like that, so it's always a good place to go, and there's always a lot of other activity down there, and we can just sort of hang out down there for a little bit. Why the airstrip? Well, for two reasons. The airstrip is there for an obvious reason. It is an airstrip for planes landing, for bringing guests into Arathusa or the surrounding reserves potentially. And the other reason is that it's an open area that is quite favourable, that habitat for cheetah to hunt. So we'll head down there and have a look at that. There's a few corrugations on this road, folks. I do apologise. Lovely big buff crossing the road here. And a red-billed oxpecker sitting on his back, hitching a ride, and also hitching a ride, and also enjoying a and also enjoying a breakfast off him by eating very this morning when I woke up, we stayed on the site last night. We stayed on Djuma, and it was quite nice to have an extra hour's sleep. We stayed at the research camp where that leopard treed her kill, or his kill. Still not sure who it was. That kill is still hanging in the tree, which is interesting, but we'll come back on that later on. We stayed there last night and woke up this morning, standing out in the research camp. It was about 4:30 this morning, and having a cup of coffee. Lion, beautiful line roar. Sorry about those bumps, folks. Beautiful line roar, and we knew that it was on the reserve, so Pete's gone out to have a look for those guys this morning, and I'm pretty sure, knowing Pete, he'll get onto those, and they were definitely on the reserve. The vocalizations were so close. Well, we knew that they were on the reserve, and it sounded so beautiful. I have to tell you folks, something magnificent about standing there with a coffee, first thing in the morning, sun about to rise, hearing lions roar. Magical, absolutely magical. One of the sounds on the planet that you really do get a goosebump feeling, and it really makes you realize you're in Africa. Quiet morning this morning this side, but that's how it works. Sometimes you'll get really busy, tired on Arathusa, and very quiet on Djuma, or vice versa. It's no rhyme or reason to it. Animals move freely. That's the wonderful things about the Sabi Sands. Animals move across borders of reserves and in and out of Kruger National Park as well, which is a fantastic sort of addition to what we have access to. Animals, big numbers of animals coming from Kruger National Park into the Sabi Sands and back and forth. So that traffic is just fantastic for us and for the habitat and the environment. It's a great thing that the animals have that space. These little corrugations on the road, these bumps, they can be a little bit annoying on camera, so I do apologise, but not much we can do about them. They don't go for very long. It starts to smooth out up here. just got a question from Lois in Buffalo, New York. And hi Lois, welcome aboard. Fantastic to have you with us. One of my favorite places, New York. Just a beautiful part of the world. Now, your question is a great technical question about the roads. And this is what I love about Safari Live. It's not just questions about animals, which are always fantastic, of course, but it's questions about, you know, the environment and how the management and technical things. It's great. And if there's anything we can't answer, we'll definitely come back to you and find the answer. But Lois wants to know if the corrugations get too deep, do they regrade the roads? Well, the answer to that, Lois, is yes. There's a couple of different techniques that is used. Obviously, there's road making equipment or plant equipment that they will have graders that will come through and also do the contour little humps that we're coming up to right now that take the water off the road in the big rains. I'll show you one of these right now. Arathusa's particular contour banks are really high, so they do a great job, and you can see its work just here. That's a great example. We'll just go back quickly. You can see there's a contour bank in front of us there. The water has hit the road here and it's run off down into this little drainage area that they've made with a grader. Just down to I'll just move my head back and Jace can get a little shot of it. Just down there. So the water has run down there and it has allowed us to keep the road in some form of usable state. Now, if those contour banks weren't there, this would just have ruts and furrows all the way through it. Erosion would also be much more sort of obvious in these roads, and it would be a lot more weight maintenance. So these contours do an incredible job. Now, the second thing that they do is they will drag behind a tractor a sort of a farm implement that's like a framework, and sometimes they have tires on them, like big old tractor tires or things like that, and they just pull it along the roads, and what it does is smooths the sand roads out, or a road that might be a little bit sort of wonky and have a lot of furrows or ruts in it. And then the last resort, or the major maintenance, is with one of those graders that would actually go through and do maintenance work like that, one of those really big road making pieces of equipment that you see in all over the world, and they would use that. So it is a big job. It's a big job maintaining these roads, and the guides and the management of the reserves spend a lot of time you know, respecting that, because at the end of the day we have to travel on them on a daily basis, and the last thing you want is to be sitting on corrugations for 6 hours a day. So I have to say the roads are really well maintained on both these reserves, and we respect them when they're a little bit wet. We might not use some of those roads. If they're quite a muddy road, we'll just make sure we let it dry out a little bit. So I like to just stop here. It's a little quiet, but it's always worth a look. As we know, all of us, anyone that's been on a drive with myself or Pete, or a drive any time in your life in Africa, you can sit and just drive past, or sorry, sit for a second and not look, and just drive past some of the most interesting things. Or you can just take your time and have a little bit more of a detailed look with some binoculars if you can. There's a lot of little birds all over there, some francolin and some blacksmith plover and so on, but not a lot of mammals. So we will carry on. Drive down the airstrip, do a little bit of a loop, and then start to make our way into Arathusa proper. beautiful morning here, folks. Really lovely. Going to let this vehicle pass and have a look around as we wait. How are you? Morning, guys. Morning.
Looking around?
Yeah, just looking around. Anything?
Not yet. Any travels in Brazil?
No. No. Yeah, we're no. Here in Djuma. Yeah.
Like that last night.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think they've got some on Djuma as well.
Right now?
Yeah.
The mating pair?
I'm not sure.
On the Djuma cheetah plain side or Vietnam side?
I'm not sure. I haven't even listened. I haven't been on the radio. I've been just driving around. But Pete's on it at the moment. I think there's a few vehicles on lock there, but might be worth listening out for.
Because the two, we had a mating pair last night. They're on a net property side, but they crossed cheetah into the north and to the Vietnam side. Possibly they found them now.
Yeah, right.
But it's good. It's busy. This time
Yeah,
we've got
fantastic.
Good lions around.
Absolutely. Cheers, big man. Have a great morning, folks. It's really nice when you just come up and have a little chat with the guides. You might need a guide. I don't know all the guides. There's a lot of guides here, but we get to know people as you bump into them more often. The guides on Arathusa that we deal with that work here specifically are super guys. They really do help us out, and I bang on about it all the time and keep talking about these guides on Djuma and Arathusa, but also on all the other reserves that traverse this. There's a really fantastic bunch of people that have welcomed us and just give us so much intelligence on the ground. It's like having 15 sets of eyes. There's a bit of line activity around this morning, or on the reserves. I think Pete will definitely come across those ones on Djuma, but the ones that we were with, those 4 males, have probably moved on to another reserve this morning by the sounds of things. This sort of habitat excuse me, just had to have a drink there. This sort of habitat is really sought after by cheetah, and for obvious reasons. It's really open. It would allow cheetah to use their main strength, which is their speed ability, or their ability to accelerate like no other mammal on the planet. But as I always say, folks, and if you've heard this a few times from me, and I apologize for repeating, but it's really important to know that there's always exceptions to the rule. Always. You can see them in wooded area, you can see them in lots of different. Okay, we're going to cross to Pete because Pete's found the lines. We're going to come back to you as soon as we've found something. We'll definitely come back. We've got a couple of jackal down here, but we're going to cross to Pete, and hopefully we'll be able to come back to these guys some other time. We'll see you just now.
Well, firstly, welcome back on the vehicle. We've got two surprises for you, but let's just have a little look just here. We've got a few dogger boys standing, keeping an eye on us. Looks like about 5 or 6 of them, big buffalo bulls. So we've just been sitting here with them for a little bit, waiting for you to join us and waiting for a little space. Now, one of the great things about Sabi Sands is that they really limit the vehicle activity around sightings. So there's at the most ever 3 vehicles viewing something, and that's why we're just waiting for the space. We have very exciting 2 lions up ahead, which the one pride, or the female from the pride, I used to know way back, called the Styx pride, and then the big male we'll talk about more when we get there. So don't want to preempt it. We haven't actually seen it. This is just what I saw on the radio, but let's go have a look. Standing by. Oh, no worries, big pleasure. And then you know there's some ornithologists here tortured. Alright, I think you have a good time. Alright, so we're just going to sneak in there. You can see the vehicle up ahead. Exactly where they are. Stand at the upper head here. Let's see what view we can get. Ah, it's nice to see the biggest of the big cats. Guys, we are going to go to the lions shortly, but they're lying very flat. Look in the road here. This is a little something that people find fascinating when they come to Africa. Yeah, right there. Hey, up the hill. Wait, it's going to roll. Look, look, look. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Guys, it's a little dung beetle. Way. He's riding that away to go bury somewhere. Normally they've got eggs inside, and when the eggs hatch, that's the sort of beginning cocoon, if you want, for the little dung beetles. Just rolling along. It'll disappear behind the vehicle. We'll go around it. Alright. From the small to the big. Wow, look at this. The head just popped up. Brilliant, brilliant. Good morning. Oh, guys, listen. Most magnificent of calls out in the bush. Big male lion, black mane, and the sound that's had many a heart trembling over thousands of years in Africa. Oh. You can easily see why so often they're referred to as the king of the beasts. And also, what a treat to see it in daytime. You hear them mostly roaring at night, early mornings, late afternoons. It's not that unusual, but it's not typical to hear them and to see them in daylight like this. So this was a real treat. YX. That's the pride that she's from. And the male is called a Matimba male. We'll talk more about him and the Matimba coalition over the next little while with them. So I'm going to give Craig a call quickly. He was asking to join earlier. Craig again. Yeah, Craig, there's a third spot open here, so right on Cheetah Cut Line, just between Central and Leadwood Junction. Copy. Right, I'm going to try and roll forward just a little inch or two. Oh, no, I thought gravity might do it for us, but not. Let's just stay like that for now. Right, so this big guy that we're looking at, as I said, he's part of the coalition called the Matimba males, spelled just the way you say it, Matimba. And they're actually a coalition of 6 males, of which typically only 2 are seen in this area. So what you often find with these large coalitions, 5, 6, 7 males, is that they dominate a large area, and when it comes to taking over areas, in other words, displacing other males and taking over prides, they'll work together. Obviously 5 or 6 males is a formidable force. Think of it that way. 6 lions would be well in excess of 1,200 kilograms, probably closer to 1,300 kilograms. That's 2,800 pounds, give or take, of lion. So it's a formidable force, these big coalitions. But once they've established a large area, normally covering 2 or 3 or 4 different prides, you will find that they break up into smaller units. So typically in this area, 2 males are seen, sometimes 3. And while mating, often it will just be 1 male with a female. So at the moment we've got this 1 male from the Matimba coalition mating with a Styx female. And not very far from here, half a mile, a little bit over half a kilometer from here, inside the eastern part here. We can't go in there, but spoke to the guys on radio. There's the Nkuhuma pride, which we saw a while back on the buffalo. They've killed another buffalo, and with them the other Matimba male is currently joining with that group. So the 2 males are close together, vocally in contact. When this guy roared just now, the other guy could definitely hear him, but effectively spending time with 2 different prides. What here is that they're mating as well with the Styx females. So they only have a few years as a dominant male, so that means that continue the line hopefully. But effectively spending time with 2 different prides. What here is that they're mating as well with the Styx females. So they only have a few years as a dominant male, so that means that continue the line hopefully. Hello Pamela. Great question out of Phoenix. Pamela's just asking, or actually more sort of in broad, about the vehicles and wildlife. In this specific case, this is a great example. We've got a massive male lion here, busy mating with a female. Well, not busy at the moment, he's busy sleeping, but in the sort of context of what he's up here for. And we're sitting, what is that, about 30 yards away, 20 yards away from him, a little bit further from the female, and could go closer in a bit. In fact, I might move forward slightly just now. And they're not bothered by us at all. He's roaring, he's sleeping, things they would normally do anyway if we were here or not. And how does that work? Why do they react or not react to the vehicles? Pamela, and for everyone else as well, I'm sure this is something people often wonder about. I know from guiding days they do. These animals have just grown up with vehicles around them, the same as they have grown up with trees and elephants and waterholes and bird life, all these different parts of what makes up their natural environment. And game drive vehicles has always been part of their natural environment, always non-threatening, doesn't chase them, doesn't bother them, doesn't harass them. It's always respectful, and they've learned over time that there's no threat in it whatsoever. Also the outline or the contour of the vehicle is very important. What I mean with that is that people always sitting down. You always brief your guests to stay seated. In the case of our vehicle, you get a little bit of a curious look sometimes because it's slightly different, the shape. Brian or VM or Jason, or the guys on camera sitting at the back, very similar in a way to a game drive vehicle. The camera actually gets them curious. I've seen that a number of times. We saw it with a Leopard a while back. That front element, the lens on the camera, when it does go towards the animal, it does look like a big eye, light reflecting off it, and that sometimes gets them curious, but they get used to it very quick. Again, on game drive vehicles, a lot of the guys, a lot of the guests, many of you that have been on safari, you know that a lot of people take photographs, so they are used to cameras, but you do sometimes get a little bit of a curious glance on first encounter with the Djuma or with Zanelli, the game drive or the film vehicles that we have for Wild Earth. But non-threatening. They've grown up with these things as being a natural part of the environment, and that's very important, because that's what gives us this amazing view, or this amazing window, if you want, into wildlife. We get to not only see these animals, but we get to see them doing what they would normally do. Natural behavior, just what they would do every day. And that is magic. That really is, apart from seeing them, to actually see the behavior uninfluenced, uninterrupted by our presence. That is really awesome. Quickly talk to the other vehicle. We can just roll forward. Joris, ek gaan net so klein bietjie vorentoe. Hoe lank is julle nog hierso? Okay. Ek sal graag bietjie wil ontmoet. Ek sal kyk as daar 'n gap is iewers. Toe terug, ons praat nou weer. En ek kry hulle. Dit sal amazing wees. Okay guys, we're just going a little bit forward. Just having a quick word there with yours. He's a very, very keen and very good photographer, and he loves the cats, he loves leopards, he loves lions. He's been one of the great helps in us finding information on them. So I'm going to try and get us into the shade a bit. The sun is really warming up now. Oh, just look at that. Oh guys, there's movement. Now with cats, when they are mating, they will have these rest periods. She should get up now as well. They normally keep a close eye on each other, both the male and the female. They don't let each other out of each other's sight. He's smelling there. I'm guessing either just to lie down, maybe he's sniffing something. He might be doing some phlegmon. If they do it, I'll talk more about it, but phlegmon is basically how we test the reproductive state of the female. Obviously we know that at the moment she is an estrus, but he will continuously test that again. Might just be that he's just looking for better shade. Although he is smelling. The female is very curious about what he's up to suddenly. She doesn't want to lose him, so to speak. But I'm just going to go a bit forward. He's walking around, the female is just lying there, but keeping an eye on him. beautiful. I've always felt or thought that male lions are more impressive, big and intimidating even. But lionesses I always think are prettier. Just such beautiful large cats. He's still just moving around there, sort of in this shadowy area of brush. She's just keeping, oh, there she goes. Alright, she's having a nice stretch. Look at this, she's almost stalking him. I think there could be a bit of playing here even. All part of the courtship. I'm just going to move a little bit forward. Very typical, rolling on her back afterwards. Now they mate a lot of times. These cats will mate every anything from every 10 to 20, 30 minutes in between mating sessions over a period of 2 to 3 days. If you take that as sort of about 4 times an hour, it's about 100 times a day. That's about 300 times in that time. So it's very short. Various aspects around the mating behavior, which is some of it sort of almost the ritual, if you want, or the behavioral aspect of it. The way she walked over to him, they'll play and interact with each other quite a bit. Typically she will roll onto her back after the mating, all things that potentially could play a role in the success of the mating. Scratch behind the ear, they'll probably go back to lying down again. But I'm just going to roll a bit forward again and try and see both of them. Look at that. Massive mane framing his face. This guy are in the region of 6 years old. Typically males become dominant sort of age 4, sometimes 4 years old. 4 to 5 is normally when they become dominant, and then they'll be dominant for 4 or 5 or 6 years, depending on a lot of things, obviously. Competition and pressure from other males, conditions, resources, injuries. Matimba males did have the benefit of being such a large coalition. Typical male coalitions vary from 2 to 4. Coalitions of more than that, 6 in this case, is rather high, and therefore they can take over large areas. We had a similar scenario 4 or 5 years ago, or 6 years ago by now, where the Mapocho males came in and wreaked havoc amongst many lion prides in their territorial takeovers, killing not only males but also quite a lot of females, and then the typical infanticide that goes along with takeovers of prides. When males take over new territories or new prides, they displace the males either through chasing them off, injuring or killing them often, and they will very often then kill all the sub-adult cubs, or sub-adults and cubs, in other words anything under 18 months, 2 years even, in the pride. And this will stimulate the females into going into estrus again and having new offspring, which will then be the offspring from those new males. Beautiful name, the Matimba males, meaning power or strength, force. Very, very befitting name for such a large coalition, and just looking at him, a magnificent male. They do personify that power and strength. Jenny just asking how long before the female will have the cubs. Now firstly, it's not always successful, even though it is a massive amount of mating over a few days. It is not always successful, although these males have been dominant here for a while, so this should be a true estrus. You do get lionesses sometimes, or even often, after takeovers, for instance. So let's say new males come in and they take over the pride, lionesses will sometimes go into false estrus, which there is hormonal change to the point where the males, and even the lioness to an extent, are in estrus behavior. In other words, the male has all the chemical and visual signs that the female is ready to mate. The female gives those signs, unknowingly, but it won't necessarily result in offspring. Possibly because new males taking over, there is a chance that they could be displaced themselves again within the next few months. So that false estrus just gives a little bit of a window to see that those males are actually staying and are dominant before actual offspring derives from it. Jenny just asking how long will it take before she has the cubs. So let's say this is a successful mating. She does get cubs as a result of this. It's about 300, it's about 3.5 months, I forgot the exact dates or days. If someone wants to check, they can let us know. It'll be great to hear it from one of you. But it's about 100 and something days, 105 days, 110 days. I forgot the exact time, but just over 3 months. Keep in mind that lion cubs are born artificial, and those precocial births like impala or wildebeest. Those babies are born and they're up and running immediately. Lion cubs in the beginning are blind and weak and rely 100% on the care of the mother specifically, and the care of the pride to an extent, for everything from food to safety to shelter. And then only when they get a little bit older do they start moving around. In the beginning, the mother literally carries them. If she moves where she keeps them, maybe from one sort of den area to another, or lair maybe rather than den, she will physically carry them. Beautiful to see this tiny little fragile fluffy lion cub being carried ever so carefully in the big jaws of a lioness is something I've seen a few times, and it is beautiful to behold. There we go, a little bit of the courtship rituals again. She goes past.
Also quite typical that they get that reaction right at the end after copulation. He's scent marking a little bit. What I meant with the reaction is that sort of growling and almost aggressive behavior from the female. Oh, lovely. Scent marking with these. He's got glands around the whisker area. So he was rubbing that up against the trees, and now he's probably spraying a little bit of urine up against the leaves as well. So just reasserting himself in this immediate area. Literally scent marking some of the bushes and trees around this immediate space that they're in at the moment. Let me see if we can get a better view. We can't go too close to them because they've actually moved into the neighboring area, but we can certainly get them a little bit more with a better view. Track that just runs close to them. Let's catch that. I'll be searching out the shadow spots or the shady areas more and more. There she's just moving right over. Big patch of shade there from a marula tree. As the morning moves along, it's getting warmer. There's a lot of energy being sapped from them during this mating period. They will not eat typically, and very often not even drink water for that time. So it is 100% focus. Such impressive manes.
End your day on safari.
Big male in his prime, and there's 3 or 4 of them, so we're going to leave them alone. And there's been some studies to suggest, but it's not sort of cut and dry, if you want, that darker maned males are preferred by females sometimes. So if you have 3 males and one has got a beautiful dark mane as opposed to some lighter maned males, the darker manes are preferred, but that is not exclusive or cut and dry at all. You do see light maned males mating as often, as successfully with females as well. And then maybe not the first benefit, but certainly a benefit, is when these males are really fighting, especially if it was a big male in his prime fighting with maybe younger males trying to take over, or older males on the way out. That thick mane would actually provide a lot of protection as well. The whole throat, chest and neck area has this sort of heavy carpet of hair over it. I've witnessed a few times, seen when big males clash, and it is something unbelievable, as much as you can imagine it. When these big animals actually enter battle, and a lot of their fights will be sort of slightly more posturing, slightly to see who's stronger, and they don't necessarily go the whole way. Obviously, it doesn't benefit any lion to get injured, even if you win. You might win at the expense of yourself. If you're heavily injured, that might mean no food, and effectively, losing on the longer run. But when they do go into the fully fledged battles, typically when new males take over from old males, and old males don't want to give up, because once they've lost that territory, once they've lost the new males, the chance of them getting it back is very small. So that's often when the battles will go to death, is when there's a serious challenge and a potential takeover. And I've seen a few of those, and it is unbelievable, the energy and the force, the power you experience from it. The sound alone is something to be, that you'll remember forever. But to see it, these massive animals, a big male like this guy, he'll weigh 200 kilograms, maybe a bit more, 210, 220 even. That would be a very big male. In pounds, that's about between 400 and 480 pounds of just raw power. It'll fly now and again. Have a look at this guy in binoculars. See if there's any clear markings on his face or the whiskers or anything specific to recognize him from. If we see him again, he's got a scar under the right eye. Although little scars like that on lions heal very quickly. Magnificent male, this. Yes, we're talking about you. Whenever you see a new male lion for the first time, which this is, it's always like a new impression on these guys. I mean, they all have, like people, like animals, you've got slight different personalities and different attitudes almost from males. These guys are a force to be reckoned with. I mean, the area they've taken over, the battles they would have had to fight to do so, it's yeah, I know, to contemplate lions, to see them, to experience them is something that really speaks to the core of one. I've heard, so many times people on their first safari in Africa, and maybe during the night there's lions roaring far from camp, close to camp, sometimes in camp. And it's always beautiful to get the impressions from people the next morning. Put it this way, when you've got lions roaring in camp, just to give you an idea, they roar at about 110 decibels, which is louder than, I know one of the references I used to use is a jackhammer. It's a very, very loud sound. 110 decibels, if it was right up against, let's say a few feet from your ear, it's loud enough to actually hurt or even damage your hearing. I was very fortunate that I worked with a fantastic guy, Dr. John Grinnell from America, that did his PhD originally in East Africa on lion vocalization, so recording their roars, doing certain playbacks to get ideas about behavior and communication aspects of roaring. And there's a lot I can tell you about that over time that I learned with him. Brilliant and super nice guy, knew his lions obviously very well. And we did some more of his work in Pilanesberg, Madikwe, Interbeni, different reserves around South Africa, looking at specific populations and so many interesting things about their roaring. But with him I had many, many amazing opportunities to not only track lion, but also do sound recordings on them. So for a few months every year, about 6 to 8 weeks, I'd join him, and we'd work together with 2 vehicles, and had opportunity pretty much every night to do fantastic recordings, and we'd often have lions. Ideally, we always wanted them about 15-20 meters. It's about 40 to 60, 40 to 70 feet from us, and you'd have them normally straight down the barrel roaring at you with really good microphones, and such a beautiful sound. But on quite a few occasions we had them closer than that, and I remember once we had 3 males, and one was maybe 2 meters from us, 7 feet, roaring straight at the vehicle, and you could actually hear the interference from the bodywork of the, also Land Rover actually at the time that I was driving. You could hear it, the vibration in the aluminium and the metal from the car. It's an incredibly powerful sound. But more than that, you can feel it inside your being. It vibrates and resonates, on your skin as much as in your soul when you hear that. And that's just, for me, it's one of the ultimate sounds to hear in the bush, which is why it's such a treat we could hear and see it earlier. Just a few little sort of snippets, if you want, from many of the things he'd learned. I would love actually John Grinnell to come visit you. He's a fantastic guy. But for instance, lion populations of certain populations have similar voice traits. In other words, lions from Etosha, which is some of the populations we were studying in reserves that they've been introduced to in South Africa, they sound different from lions from East Africa, who sound different again from lions from Kruger, but similar to each other. In other words, you could compare it almost to like a dialect. Slightly different accents, slightly different tonal patterns. To the human ear, not that much different, although when you listen to it a lot, you can actually hear it eventually. We could hear it in the playbacks. I'd be like, oh, that sounded like lions from East Africa. That's roaring, in some of the experiments that he did with, again, just with directional and playing neighbors that the lions knew as opposed to playing strange lions, and how the behavior differs. So lions would be able to listen and hear, okay, are your lions roaring to the east? But that's fine, because those guys always roar there. They are our eastern neighbors, or eastern, dominant males. But if they hear lions roaring from the east, which are not the lions they know, then they will know that there's strangers in the area. So they can tell a lot of things from the roaring and communicate a lot of important information. Oh, for the moment, these guys look like, again, the proverbial flat cat. He's having a sleep. She's looking quite relaxed as well. They've had 2 mating sessions, so it might be a good bit before they have another few sessions. So for now, we're going to stay with him, see what happens, but you're going to go and enjoy some other wildlife with HT. Enjoy it.
Hi folks, welcome back to Arathusa. We've just come onto this really lovely breeding herd of elephant, big bulls, and we only saw the bulls first, and we came up and sat with them, and now we're being surrounded by just keeping our eyes on what's going on here, because there's a lot of them. Just going to move back onto the road to give this female a little bit of space. The last thing you want to do is block the pathway of the animals, and you want to let them have space to travel through. I'll just go back a little bit for you there to get a nice shot. Lovely mother, she's got her calf just behind her there. and it's such an incredible feeling to be surrounded by the largest land mammal on the planet, and particularly the boys that you might see a show of strength up here. We'll just keep our eyes on the whole herd. There's about 20 different individuals at the moment. A little bit of vocalization going on. Just making sure all these individuals have space to go through. They're very relaxed, they're really chilled. Let's go and have a look at the show of strength of this boy here. Watch him pushing over this tree. Look at this. Actually might just go the other side of it, because if he carries on pushing that tree, it's going to come right down on top of us. Let's just have a little look here and watch what there we go. Right behind us. He's pushing it over to get the tender, nutritious roots out from underneath. He's using his foot there to dig it out. I'll just move up a little bit more for Jason. There we go. A bit more. There we go. Excuse me. So they'll use their foot for digging and pushing earth away, and we see loads of signs of that around the reserves where they've pushed over trees and basically just eaten the roots, which does change the landscape somewhat. Sometimes they do exactly what they did then and don't push it over completely, but other times they'll push the tree right over on its side. Lots of vocalizations going on at the moment. Yeah, he's just gone behind this termite mound. Behind us, if I just roll backwards, there's the only reason I moved so far forward was because I thought that tree was going to come down on top of us. At the moment, we've got a beautiful youngster just coming through this vegetation next to us here. Just browsing those beautiful leaves off. And there's no one behind me, Jace, other than a big elephant. Just let me roll back and just watching this female. She's just got a youngster with her. I'm sure she's fine. She's not showing any just reverse a little bit more. Just one behind us now. But there's a lovely youngster coming across the road in front. the front of us is a lovely youngster here. Let's come up a little bit closer to him. We are completely surrounded by elephants here at the moment, folks. It's a really big group of elephants and they're so relaxed. Lots of youngsters, a few trailing bulls that will be at the back of the herd, just particularly when one of the females might be in estrus, and they will just trail behind the herd and be able to tell exactly the right time to make their presence felt. I would say there's probably about 40 individuals around us at the moment, and they just keep coming out of everywhere. Every time I look left or right, there's more, and it just goes to show you that these massive mammals still can stay quite I'm just going to roll back a little bit so you can see this one digging. Using his foot here. Watch that, that's fantastic. Using his foot, digging up. Look at that, just found a fantastic little tuber of some description there. They really look like they're enjoying their food. So that trunk and those feet and those tusks, they're all used for food gathering, and there's all different techniques that they'll use. And we saw with our individual yesterday that only had half a trunk. He used a very, very different technique for eating. He pulled the foliage back into his mouth and then stripped it back between his teeth, whereas most elephant will strip the foliage off with their trunk first and then push it into their mouth. So these highly intelligent creatures will utilize all different ways. Now, I've seen some parts of Africa where there was elephants actually living on a sort of edge of a swamp. They would get a bit of a taste for the sedges and the water, sort of aquatic grasses that were growing, and they ended up pulling these large bunches of sort of reeds out, and they would wash the sand off in the water, dipping it like a tea bag in and out of the water, and then they would put it into their mouth and eat it. Now, the elephant gets 6 sets of teeth in its life. Those tusks are overpronounced, or they're modified upper incisors, and they grow constantly within their life. But those other 6 sets of teeth, that's it. Once those are gone, then the animal's vigor starts to drop, and it will end up moving on to other parts of the universe. But the point I'm making is that those teeth, they have to take care of those teeth, and they will take care of those teeth by all different means, and washing the sand off or shaking the sand off sometimes if they're picking up grass. Got a little boy behind us here who's giving us a little bit of showing his strength, a little bit of a teenager. The lovely baby then just walking through. Beautiful encounter. So many of them around us, folks. When you see these bigger herds, it could be 2 herds meeting together, you know, 10, 15 animals, or even a few. Oh, fantastic. and they meet up, and there could be related animals, and there's this definite gestures of greeting, and very, very social and very intimate greetings that they do. And they will feed and then potentially go to a water point together, and then maybe split off in the hotter part of the day into their breeding herds, run by that matriarch, that normally oldest, wisest female. Not always, but 95% of the time it is the oldest, wisest female, and they will split off and go about their merry way, feeding and browsing, and pulling anything that they fancy. You saw the strength of that animal pushing over that tree. It gets bigger than that, this little boy here. So we're about 10 meters away from these guys. Very, very relaxed folks. None of the males are in must. There's no indication that these guys are threatened by us, and it brings me back to that same old point that one of the wonderful things that Sabi Sands and the reserves that we're on particularly, and all of Sabi Sands, they're known for, is these highly conditioned, familiarized animals that have no sort of feeling of threat from us. It's quite a wonderful feeling, it really is. Because I've been in some parts of Africa where you wouldn't be able to do this with the elephant. They would be definitely showing very frustrated or aggressive behaviour to us. And that's an historical thing, that they find humans a threat in that area. And in this particular area, it's the complete opposite. Again, really utilising that foot for digging. And then that wonderful muscular trunk. They're digging up these little tubers, little storage, plant storage bulbs underneath the grass that you or I would probably walk straight past. But they've got the knowledge, they've got the skills, they've got the instinct to know where these are, and learning from their parents, and that goes on. Now there's some animals, I've been to some, let's just watch what this little guy does. Very close, he's only about 6 meters, 5 meters from me at the moment. So relaxed, folks. It's a beautiful experience, and we're lucky to be here with these guys. We just found those 2 bulls, and then the whole rest of the breeding herd, the breeding herd then came upon us, and there's lots of youngsters in here. Didn't quite see which one was the matriarch because a lot of elephants passed behind us. I'm just going to see if there's any more around we can get closer to. Just let me drive up this hill a little bit. Just let me drive up this hill a little bit.
Start and end your...
A humbling experience, and you feel it go right through you. That vocal wasn't at us, by the way. That was at a couple of boys that, a couple of the males that are sort of lingering around. And I think that was one of the adult females that just gave a little a little sign of keep your distance. The reason why I'm sitting here, the shot's not that fantastic, folks, but the vocalizations are beautiful. And I don't mean that really to Jason. I'm just reading the place that I've put Jason in. It's not brilliant, but I just wanted to hear if she did her beautiful elephant roar again. Okay, we might move on and let these guys be. They've moved off the road into the vegetation, and it is warming up a little bit. But I think one of the lovely things is that they just came to us as opposed to us going to them. And I pulled off the road just to have a look at this big male to start with, and Jason and I were just sitting there watching this big male, and then the whole sort of breeding herd came up round behind us, and it was a lovely, lovely thing to have happen. One of those things that instead of driving to an animal, the animals come to you. It's a really lovely experience. At the same time, when you're in Africa, you do have to understand and not get complacent about elephants. One of the mistakes you can make is, your first thing you have to do, I'll just move up a little bit because there's another nice youngster down here. Oh, a young bull, but he might come up towards us. One of the things you have to be careful of is that you don't get complacent and just be watching one individual and realise that a couple of other individuals have walked up behind you that might not be as tolerant. So you just got to have your wits about you and just watch what's going on, and then you just gauge the sort of feel of the herd, and you watch the behaviour and you watch the posture of the animals. And you know, there was no way in the world that any of those animals were showing any uncomfortable behaviour with us then, other than that little boy who was just throwing his weight around just to show us he was tough. But everyone else was just so relaxed, and the matriarch would have let us know if we were in the wrong spot, and she just, well, I think it was the matriarch, just walked on behind us, completely relaxed. The big bulls were completely relaxed as well. It was just a great situation. So close enough that we didn't change their behaviour. Really fantastic for us to be amongst that. Okay, I'm going to drive on a little bit further, see what else we can find. I know Pete had some fantastic encounter with lions this morning, which is brilliant. But at this time of the day, they're definitely going a bit more flat than upright. You might hear a little grinding sound. I've got a stick stuck in my wheel here, I can hear. So just hold on, Jace, for a second. I'm just going to put the brakes on. You can hear that sound. Just bear with me, folks. I'm just going to hop out and just see if I can get this stick out. I've just got a stick or a rock stuck in my wheel, or it's grinding on something. Can't quite see it, but it is there. We might just have to drive and brake a couple of times. I can't quite see it. It's making a horrible grinding sound, but we will fix that, as I will fix this. More elephant. Listen to that. That's the thing. You can't really see it, folks, but there's an elephant just 20-30 meters behind these trees, pushing over a tree, and it doesn't matter how hard you look. He's just pushed over a tree, and all I heard was the crack, and all I hear is that grinding sound. So I'm just going to try and get this out manually. So bear with me, folks. I'm sorry it's back and forth. I'm just going to brake heavily just here. Hold on, Jace. No grinding sound. There we go. That's fixed it. It was just a little rock or something lodged either on the brake disc or something like that. But sometimes they pop up in there when you're driving through these roads, and then or a stick or something like that, and it just makes a little bit of a scratching sound. Reversing or driving forward and braking hard, it normally dislodges it, so it worked that time. Right. So when we left you to go over to Pete, it's always the way, isn't it? We hadn't seen anything for about 15-20 minutes, and we saw two jackal, which were lovely, side-striped jackal, and we waited with them for a little bit, but they did take off. You don't normally see, well, you don't always see them in the daytime. They're normally a bit more active at dawn and dusk, but not always. I mean, there's always exceptions to that rule. Another elephant over here. There's a lot of elephant in this area. So they were lovely. They were lovely, and the side-striped jackal is not as much study done on those particular jackals as some of the other jackals in Africa, and there's not a lot known about them. A little bit about their behavior, a little bit. You'll see them normally in pairs. They will use holes like that on the side of that termite mound. They would use holes like those to maybe den down in. That could be used by another animal before that or whatever, but that's the sort of thing they prefer. A lot of people think that they're just scavengers, and I have to say, through experience and from what I've read, but particularly my own personal experiences watching jackal, they're very experienced hunters. They forage for loads of different things. They eat different types of fruits from trees, hence the name jackalberry, the tree. They also have been seen to eat frogs, reptiles, crickets, termites, just amazing amount of array of things that they have in their diet. And there's been a couple of studies done on jackals that they've found that have either been killed in an attack by lions or something like that, and the lions have just left them, which is not always the case. They might eat them as well. And they did a dissection on the stomach contents, and they found that only about 10% of that particular individual's stomach contents was scavenging, so it was carrion. The rest of it was all different types of invertebrates and reptiles and all different things. So I suppose my point is that don't ever think just of the jackal as a scavenger. They're a really great little hunter, and they will take birds' eggs. They're a really, really clever canine, and have a fantastic call at night as well. Quite a chilling call in Africa. Right, it's always a good thing to know where you are, and I don't have any idea where I am at the moment, which is kind of nice. It's not many times in life you don't know where you are. Okay, I see where I am, and I just have to, all I'm doing, folks, is just looking at that we've got on our phones, and basically it allows me to get a real-time. Just have a little zoom in on that, Jace. It allows me to get a little real-time. That little ping there that you can see, that little blue dot is us, and that allows us to track wherever we are on the reserve, and then I can work my way out. With Djuma, I'm pretty familiar with that now, but with Arathusa, it's all a lot of new roads. So just want to double check where we were, and we can carry on. I can definitely smell elephant again, that's for sure. Elephant have got a beautiful, beautiful sort of smell or scent about them. When I worked with elephants in captivity, it was the first thing that we used to do in the morning was clean out after we'd fed them and given them a bit of behavioural enrichment. We used to clean out, and that aroma of elephant is definitely something that conjures up a lot of great memories for me working with animals. Okay, we're just going to take a right here. Still quite cool. It's probably up a couple of degrees, and we're still probably on the cusp of predatory activity. Obviously, the lines that Pete was with have gone flat. You might get a couple of exceptions to that rule, but most of the still quite cool. It's probably gone up a couple of degrees, and we're still probably on the cusp of predatory activity. Obviously, the lines that Pete was with have gone flat. You might get a couple of exceptions to that rule, but most of the animals that, particularly the predators, will be going down. Sorry about the bumps, folks. Sun's just bursting its head through now. A lot of the times I see things that I like to tell you about, but we won't see them because they fly across the road and they go for cover. So I just saw a little slender mongoose, and when I stop again I'll get out a couple of images of that. They're very tricky to see. They're much more elusive than the dwarf mongoose that we come across often here, but they normally run across the road. They get their name from the obvious. They are quite slender with a very long tail. We often see them just shoot across the road. Now, okay, I'm going to follow you, bird. Where have you landed? Where have you landed? Oh, right up the top of that tree. It's a little bit far away from us. That call is the woodland kingfisher that I'm desperate to show you because it's such a pretty bird, but that one's not a good example. Just two flew over my head then. That woodland kingfisher has got a gorgeous call, and because it's a sign of summer, they all start to become really active. Here's a beautiful mud wallow here on the side. There's going to be lots of enjoyment in these mud wallows.
Guys, welcome back. We've just been doing sort of what the cats are doing. Found a little spot here in the shade. Even though it is overcast, the sun is hot. These two have been fast asleep. They haven't moved a muscle. I think the male maybe twitched his tail once at a fly, and that's about it. He's just over there towards the left. We've got a little window here through the trees. So, sleeping, resting. Doing one of the things that lions do very well, and that is sleep. You might move in a bit. As I said, they really have been motionless since you went to look at all those lovely elephants and all the activity around that. I love breeding herds. Always fun to see the different ages and different sizes of elephant. But I think this guy might move purely because there's a bit of sun catching him now. Where he was lying earlier at perfect shade, but I see now with the sun moving overhead, it's catching him. So might be he starts getting a bit warm. A bit of bird life in the distance, so you can hear some arrowmark babblers. Lazy flicker to fly. Indian lion's tails, a big part of what they do is keep flies away from them. There's also communication aspects to the tail. They can show curiosity, aggression, various information about their... Oh, here we go, little head popping up. I think she might wander over to him. I'm just going to move us a little bit so you can see better. Oh, she might just move deeper into the shade as well. Let's see. His head is popped up. They do like to keep an eye on each other. Get a little view of him through the trees here. Oh, there they go. always staying close together. A male with an east female close by will literally not let her out of his sight. Move back a little bit. There, so I was looking at the road behind me now. Right, let me think. See if it gets worse from here if we go back. It's most likely that they will stay around this general area for the rest of the day. There will still be a bit of mating, but if it gets as hot as it feels like at the moment, and there was very hot temperatures predicted for today, then the activity will, the energy levels will, put it this way, it'll be better for them to conserve energy by not being too active, and then be more active again towards sunset and tonight. The bird books, they give you little descriptions of the birds and what they look like and basic behavior. And these are sort of field guide books, in other words, for identification and so on. And then they normally try and describe the sound the bird makes. And that can be quite a bit of entertaining reading. You know, the sort of tweet, tweet, pew, pew. To try and write that in spelling is quite tricky. But this one, the black cuckoo, I thought we might hear it one more time, but you could hear it just in the distance there. The description in the books normally say that the bird call sounds like, "I'm so sad, I'm so sad," and you can actually hear that in the call. I mean, it is quite a melancholy type sound, and the rhythm or the cadence is exactly like that. Even though I don't think the lions necessarily care too much or listen to the cuckoo, they can be fast asleep like this, but they are still perfectly in tune with their surroundings. So if a branch is suddenly breaking close by because there's some buffalo walking in, or they smelt hyenas on the breeze or other lions coming towards them, they'd be awake in an instant. So even though they are sleeping, even though they are resting, they're still tuned into everything about the environment. Hello Bob, it's the question there from Iowa. Bob's just asking what happens excuse me, if another female goes into estrus. Normally it would be from the same pride. Well, sorry, there's various scenarios here, Bob. A different pride, obviously, it'll be a different area, and even if it's the same coalition, like the Matimbas in this case, if they are dominant over both prides, that would be a separate scenario altogether. The prides won't mix. You have your females with their territories, so to speak. So you might have 2 or 3 prides of females that have their areas, and you might have, like in this case, dominant males that are dominant over 2 or 3 of those areas. So firstly, different females and different prides will be handled separately. And then if it was another female from the same pride, it can happen. In fact, it often happens that it's around the same time, and not necessarily on the same days, but lions often have cubs in roughly the same time. That gives them benefits of helping to raise the cubs, different females lactating at the same time and so on. So it's a fairly common thing that you could have 2 or 3 or 4 sets of cubs within reasonably or relatively the same time. If it were to happen that both females or 2 females would be in estrus at the same time, there could be different scenarios. It might be that the females will be close together, and then normally you'll have 2 males close together, or that the females separate from each other with a male each. It has even happened that you might have one female in estrus mating with one male, and another female from that pride further away being in estrus mating with another male, not necessarily from the same coalition. That can also happen, but it's not typical. So it really does depend a lot on which males are around, what's happening, and so forth. constant sounds in the background. Woodland kingfishers in the distance, and this sort of beautiful melodic whistle closer to us is from a long-tailed shrike, also called a magpie shrike. As you can guess, they look a little bit like magpies. Long black tail, black body with bits of white on the wings and the face. That's an interesting question, Debbie. Debbie's just asking if lions have a distinctive odor like wild dogs or hyena. Debbie, actually not really. Hyenas to some extent have a smell about them. Wild dogs definitely. There's a few animals that you can literally smell. You can sometimes smell them quite a while before you see them. Wild dogs being one of them. Waterbuck, those antelope that we looked at in the beginning of the drive, had a very strong, very distinctive smell. But lions not really. I've been fortunate enough over the years to have been very up close and personal with lions, and even in Pilanesberg or Madikwe and places when we captured lions, sometimes to put collars on for research purposes, so you dart them for a little while, put a collar on or take some blood samples for what the guys were doing in the park, and then they'd wake up and they'd go on again. So I've been very close, looked at and feel and touched the paws and the teeth and the mouth and so on. You have to be very careful around a lion's mouth just for interest's sake. You can get a few things from lions that are not good to get in the system for a human, gonococcus and so on. So point is that they don't really smell much. You could compare a lion in terms of the texture of the skin and even the muscle structure. The closest thing I've ever touched and looked at and smelt, and smell not being such a big part, I know that's the question, Debbie, but they don't really have an odor about them. They don't, unless they've just killed a buffalo and they're covered in blood, they might smell a bit, but a clean typical lion like the ones we're looking at here, there's no strong distinctive smell about them. In terms of the coat, again, I'm going to compare it to a dog species that I don't think you get in North America as commonly as you do in Southern Africa, but you get a dog called a Rhodesian Ridgeback. Amazing dogs, great dogs, really big as well, and their coats, I would probably say, is the closest coat that I've felt to a lion's coat. You could compare it probably to some of your big, like pointer breeds, sort of short-hair dogs, but smell-wise, no distinctive smell that you could say, oh, I smell a lion, like you would, for instance, be able to say with wild dog. I'm going to try and find us a slightly better view spot to watch these guys while they sleep. If they move, we'll move, but the sun literally it's cooking us.
After in the skin.
Yeah, no, you can hear it go. It sounds like bacon in the pan, It is it is really, really hot in the sun. Let's see if we can't find a shady spot to keep an eye on them from. But yeah, no, it's too much. this works. It's not the best shade, but it should be enough to make a difference. Yeah, a little bit of respite. You can hear an aeroplane in the distance there, flying overhead. It's one of these small planes. A lot of guests fly in and out of these lodges. You've got little dirt airstrips. Probably something like a Cessna Beechcraft maybe. Oh, okay, now I can actually see it in the distance. It looks like a Cessna Caravan, great bush plane. Again, not something that bothers the lions. They do see and hear little planes every so often. And it's just another part of the environment they've grown used to. They know it's no threat, no bother to them. Don't even open an eyelid for it. And we're going to keep an eye on these cats. And I know HT is heading back more in the direction of Voitila camp again. This morning early before the drive we had a peek. That impala little carcass was still up in the tree. The leopard didn't come back for it, but there has been a few tracks around from the night. So just towards the end of drive he's just going to look around a little bit, see if there isn't maybe some indication, tracks or sounds or alarm calls. With all the animals last night in quarantine, all the wildebeest, zebra, impala, lots of young ones being born, there's a very good chance that we'll have a lot of leopard activity in and around that area over the next few days. So with the heat picking up the way it is at the moment, you might find most cats at the moment doing what these two are. Trying to save as much energy as possible while it's so hot. think we'll give these guys a few more minutes. I have a strong feeling that there's going to be very little happening over the next bit. There might be the odd mating, but it really is in the area of excessively hot at the moment. So we'll give them a few minutes, see what happens, and then maybe we'll just have a little drive, go past back past Buffelshoek Dam, big waterholes when it's hot like this. There's always a chance of some ellies going for a swim or something like that. But let's keep an eye on them for a few minutes more. See if anything changes, otherwise we'll go for a little drive just to make our way towards the end of the morning drive. Sunrise drive, sorry. Sunset drive would be this evening when the sun sets. Still the sort of early summer bush, just looking at the surrounding habitat. You can still see short grass. That big rain we had 2 days ago, a day and a half ago. It's going to start playing its role now. But it's a lovely time of the year when the grass is not too thick yet. You can easily spot things. 3 months from now, those lions, even at this distance, wouldn't be visible. They'd be obscured by grass, never mind the foliage on the trees getting luscious. So perfect time for safaris, even that might be a little bit different from what people expect. I think many of you might have looked at this and thought, why is it so green? I know that most people have this perception of Africa being sort of browns and beiges the whole year round, but in summer when the rains come for a few months, we have this lovely, vivid and very alive green tinge to the bush. All colors of green, light green, dark green, you even go sort of turquoise and almost like a blue-green sometimes. It's a very beautiful time of the year, even if it is not typically what people expect to see from a habitat point of view. Alright, well, these guys are here. I hope that they'll be here this afternoon. They're right on the boundary of where we can go, but we'll definitely come back and have a look for them. So we've been hiding from the sun here. It's a hot afternoon, hot morning. Sorry, it feels like afternoon. Guys, HT is closer back to camp. As we said, there are some leopard tracks around. Wasn't seen this morning, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So he's going to look around, see what's around that area. We're going to leave these cats lying, sleeping, and have a little drive towards Buffelshoek Dam. Maybe there's a surprise at the water. You never know when it's this hot. So we'll see you probably just before the end of drive to say hello or to show you something. Enjoy the ride with HT and see you in a bit.
So folks, we've just come back up onto Djuma now. We've left Arathusa. We had a really lovely encounter with those elephants, and we saw a few more as we were driving back. It was quite interesting. We were on a road called Eli Alley, which was very fitting of its name. Got this lovely zebra here, just standing in the shade. Beautiful. And that youngster lying down over there, enjoying the sunshine. They sleep on their side sometimes, they sleep standing up, they rest lying down, but it's a real sociable thing where a couple will be watching around and some of the foals will lie down. It's a lovely array of zebra on here at the moment. There's more walking off to our right. Gentlemen, ladies, sorry, I'm going to have to be coming through here. Sorry to disturb you. Thank you. So what we're going to do, folks, is just go down and have a little poke around here where we found that leopard kill up a tree. Still hasn't been touched. It's very odd. We haven't seen any signs other than tracks around the camp last night. So Will just got back to me in the control room. He walked around there and had a look, and he's very, very familiar with leopard. He works with leopard constantly, and he said there was a bit of activity around our camp early this morning. So I'm just going to poke my head down into a couple of spots just before we close today. This morning, a couple of the old haunts that Karula used to have that Will and Pete and many others have told me about. She may be lurking around that area. You just never know, but it's worth the last sort of 15 minutes, just us going down and having a look. Still got a little squeak in my wheel, so if you hear a little sort of a grinding sound, there is definitely a rock still in there, or a stick. It sounds a bit more like a stick to me. Going to cut through here on the left. We'll go left and then we'll go right. Even if we did, so if we were in her vicinity, she'd probably, or he, we don't know, it's definitely Karula. It could be another cat. It could be another cat. So we're just going to have a little snoop around before we close today. A little bit tricky to get to in the time we've got, but we can still have a bit of a look. And what I'll do after we close today, folks, is I'll carry on and just have a little bit of a look down there, just in case we get a little heads up on what's going on. Whatever leopard it is, they will probably be more than likely resting in this heat. It started to heat up. We've probably jumped about 6 degrees since we talked this morning. It's around 25, I'm guessing, at the moment. It feels like it. The sun's definitely penetrating through now. Don't come down this road very often, but it's a nice little, hasn't been used a lot. It's a little bit bumpy still, but lovely sort of little riverine sort of woodland here. Now we're going to have a little bit of an issue here with our aerial. Can you bend that over, Jace? Does it bend right back for us? Let's try and get through these trees. An elephant has pushed this tree over. Got him. That's it. So there's definitely a leopard in our area of our final control room and our research centre, which is kind of exciting, very exciting. As I've always said, living this close to wildlife is a really fantastic experience. It reaffirms how conditioned these cats are to humans.
Out and we just expose the exposure to the different areas is always a great thing. You learn so much from just popping your head in and seeing what the habitat's like and what else is around. And one thing leads to another, and that's the beautiful thing about this adventure, is you never really know what's around the next corner. When I look around like that, folks, I look up at the aerial. We've got a 3 or 4 metre mast that's sticking out from the back of the vehicle, and 3 metres probably. And it's very, very important that we look after that. Thanks, mate. This morning. It's got me. The story's got me. It's like, I want to know what's going on with this hippo. I want to know where he goes. It's a really interesting one. So just want to double check. We'll just quickly go up and have a look if this kill's in the tree. It's still there. Have a little look up there. In the bush. Trying to figure out what the whole story. Get ourselves in the shade for a second. Oh, that's nice, Chase, isn't it? That's lovely. Little impala. There's a few impala over here. Everything's pushing for the shade at the moment. And we've got about just under 3 minutes to go. So instead of rushing off and trying to squeeze it all into 30 seconds to say farewell, again, thank you very much for joining us this morning from Pete and I and all the team. It's always a pleasure to have you on board.
and your questions. If you've got any more questions, you know you can send them to questions@wildearth.tv or tweet us at #SafariLive. We'll be back this afternoon with you at about right on 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock our time. You can check the websites, the National Geographic Wild website or the WildEarth.tv website for more information about that, wherever you are in your part of the world, to adjust your viewing. We also will be following up on the hippo story. Pete, I'm sure will want to go back and see if those lines become active, as we did last night with our lines. We'll definitely follow up on the leopard who has stashed his or her meal in the tree. We'll also do a wonderful drive around, as we always do, on Djuma and Arathusa game reserves here in Sabi Sands, South Africa, which is just an absolute joy to be here. I really enjoy the spontaneity of it, the things that we do, the things that come to mind, the technology that we can bring in, but also the most important thing for us is connecting with you. And Djuma and Arathusa game reserves here in Sabi Sands, South Africa, which is just an absolute joy to be here. I really enjoy the spontaneity of it, the things that we do, the things that come to mind, the technology that we can bring in, but also the most important thing for us is connecting with you. And